Greetings, 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 greetings. It is I, your king, King Clifford Jefferson, ascendant of Godfrey, the fifth kind of Van Jew, son of folk, ruler of Jerusalem. I am the reincarnation of Jesus Christ, which we know as King Edgar the Peaceful. It is the year 2973, which is in the Gregorian year, December 20th, 2023. I'm here with another marvelous lecture for my subjects, my heirs, my successors, those who are members of the Third Temple English Church of England. Once again, it is my obligation, it's my duty as your king to remind you of your past and your obligation and your pledge to your fathers who have gone before you. All right, so this is another lecture in regards to the previous past two that I did in regards to showing that those who claim to be your scholars or your teachers don't have a clue about what they're talking about. The last couple of ones I did was against Taj Tariq and Dr. G. This is one against Senator TV. And this is reflecting all those who we have on this podcast. So those who are viewing this lecture, please inform them that I invite them to this platform, or I can come on their platform just to clear up some of their misconception about the identity of the people here in what we call North America. All right. We're not concerned about Africa, Europe, Spain, all those continents over there, because you're here now. All right. What is your salvation? Where is your birthright? Where is your heritage here in what we call in this present day and time, North America? So that's what we come to deal with. This is what I'm going to reveal to the people, and you can take this back to those who are on Silent TV, as well as all the other platforms, once again, who does not have a clue about what it is that they are as people here on this so-called continent. All right, so without further ado, let's get started. This is one that's doing on behalf of my grandfather. Let me just show you. As you can see, to my left, this is my grandmother, Ruth Jefferson. Nana Ruth Jefferson. We know that Ruth was the grandmother of Jesus Christ, or the person who personified or fit that image of Jesus Christ. This is my grandfather, Leodis Jefferson. Yes, Leodis Jefferson. As you can see, his features are clearly distinctive of those who you classify here in this continent as Native American. But his last name or his surname is Jefferson. All right. So this is why I'm doing this lecture, to show that the descendants here in North America identify as Aboriginal, Native American Indians, Negroes, Black, Colored, Ethiopian, are English, Anglo, with a mixture of Saxon, Berbers. All right. Anglo-Saxon Berbers. All right. We refer the former, but not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We identify with ourselves as English, Anglo-Saxon Berbers. Our nation, our country, our empire, our kingdom has been invaded by what we call Vikings or invaders. Invaders or Vikings are those who conquest and take over the territory by way of what we call prescription of sovereignty. Anybody who knows prescription of sovereignty? Prescription of sovereignty is the ability for de facto sovereign to go over and take the sovereign's land without it being attested. Okay, that's what's being done here in North America, because there is no de jure sovereign. All right, America is acting as the sovereign under the term United States of America, made up of the original 13 colonies, within themselves have their sovereignty, but the only sovereignty they had, which was surrendered to the Articles of the Confederation, which was that power involving king and parliament, which was ruling this territory, which we call North America, under the previous empires that amalgamated from the English Empire, i.e. those who are from the land called the Angles or the Anglosphere. Okay? Very, very, very important. But before I bring this lesson to you, I just want to get uh, a portrayal of the falsehood that's being taught, because people don't want to believe the truth. The only way you can bring the truth to them is show them. That means to put a clean glass of water to a dirty glass of water and let the people choose for themselves. And the source of the dirty glass of water, the clean water and the dirty water is determined by its source. Where does it come from? Okay, where does it come from? All right. So let's get their interpretation of the so-called evolutionary process where, and I'm not talking about biological DNA, etc. I'm talking about the evolutionary process of the identity which we identify with today here in North America, which according to what's going to be said on the screen goes back to those that were called Aboriginal Native Americans, i.e. Black people, misnomer as Egyptians, because we know they all descended from Shem, and Shem was the son of Noah. We know that all the 12 tribes descended down from Jacob. Jacob was the son of Isaac, the son of Abraham, descended down from Shem, which was called Shemitic people, all right, which consists of those who call themselves Hebrews, Hebrew Israelites, all right, which is not the ones over there today in the country, which, as we see, are suffering from the original uh, um, covenant. You know what I'm saying? As you can see, it's been broken. This is the new covenant as specified by Jeremiah 6:16. All right. Read that scripture. All right. We're not going to do it today for the sake of time, but this lecture today is to show those people here in North America are actually English heirs and successors who were colonized, who were invaded by what we call Vikings, which goes back to what we call the Clovis culture. Yes, the Clovis culture descended down from the Merovingians, who gave birth to the Carolingians, in which all the other dynasties, houses, branches broke from or shooted from. All right. So the Clovis culture is very important to understand who he was, because the Clovis culture under the Merovingians never claimed to be descendants of gods like the English or the Angles or the Anglo. All right. So without further ado, let's get started with this marvelous lecture. All right. Promise not to hold you too long. I love you, Grandpa. I love you, Grandmama. Excuse me. Everybody listen very close.
Continuing the speed of showing who is who. One of the other things that is really, really important, they go to this part, is the descriptions. The descriptions further. This is the English first encounter from the book Ancient America. Quotes directly from the explorers left in notes. And when they came in Virginia amongst the Powhatans, the word for that tribe, this is the direct quote. Then Powhatan, and the page is here, and I have the book, I can open up the source, chapter 2, page 205. Then Powhatan, more like a devil than a man, this is the chief, with about 200 more as black as himself in Virginia. Now, one of the things I do, I can go all day with this part, Spanish and them seeing how they look. And I can go to further sources if I have to. But when you start naming the tribes, one of the things you find is linguistic connections directly to what we call the Olmec Maya. I don't call them that, I call them the sheep, because that's what they call themselves in their language. And I'll be able to pull up the glyphs, anything that needs to prove that. And I will do that in later rounds. Powhatan comes directly from this glyph right here. This glyph, which was a Mayan glyph, you see right here, is from the books Reading the Mayan Glyphs by Michael Coe, who was a prominent Mayan scholar. And he goes on to read a pronoun, ya suffix, which is followed by one of two alternative glyphs. The first of these glyphs is the head of Powhatan. This word and this.
Now, if you look right here, it says Powhatan is actually the XI Olmec Mayan term Powhatan. So they're saying that the Olmecs, or he's saying that the Olmecs or the Powhatan were those who were here on the eastern north coast of North America, which were also on the area which we call Mexico. All right, as described by, as he said, the first European colonist, which is Verrazano. All right, when you go back to Florida, Florida was part of the Spanish crown. All right, which was surrendered back to Great Britain in 1763. All right. It was surrendered to Great Britain in 1763. So all that territory, Florida was under the jurisdiction of the Kingdom of Great Britain under the Scottish King before it was under the authority of the Frankish kings. All right. Key word, Franco or Frankish. All right. Let's continue. We know Franco and Frankish goes back to the Northmen or the Vikings, going back to Clovis I, who were descendants of the Merovingians and the Carolingians, who all got their origin back, going back to the Council of Nicaea in Constantinople. We're going to prove that, all right? Where all the doctors of the church descended down from, whether they were Coptic, whether they were Orthodox, whether they were Oriental, all of those teachings stem from the same source, all right? Let's continue.
Word, one in Virginia, one in Mexico, begins to show how these civilizations stretch. And in both places, they depicted themselves as black. So where are the missing Indians at? Ain't no missing Indians. The missing Indians, the missing Aboriginals, are a group of black people who are now called African Americans. So now I'm gonna help you go further. Some of the culture, us playing cards, the 52 card deck that came from Mexico. Games similar, the rubber balls that we use for basketball today. These come from actual ball games that were developed here, not in Africa. So when you even get tarot cards, these cards show their antiquity in America. Here is, if I can zoom in on this, I don't know if I can, but you can see the deck of cards placed into what you call a 52-card tarot deck. And this comes directly from the Mayan Zolkin calendar on the right. This is Bishop DeLanda, who first charted these 13 ancestors, which the original card deck was made off of. 13 Mayan ancestors. And this is Bishop DeLanda, and we can, show more of these, but I want to move to more of the pictorial presentations, all right?
Pictorial. All right, they only depict the new use pictures. All right.
All right, so now, what am I looking at here? What you're looking at is the walls of the...
Very, very close attention to this, everyone. Pay very close attention to this right here. What he's about to say. All right? Because this is going to be the key to your understanding of who you are here on this territory or this continent or this what we call landmass, because this is your inheritance. Yes, the whole landmass. We're not talking about a parcel of land. We're not talking about an estate. We're talking about the whole landmass belongs to you. But who are you in regard to this inheritance? Because this goes all the way back to what we call time immemorial, the days spoken about in your scriptures. All right, let's continue.
Temple of Warriors from Chichen Itza. And the book that I first learned this from before I went there is The Temple of Warriors by Earl H. Morris. Temple of Warriors, Earl H. Morris. Right? It has these depictions in it. And his wife...
Notice it says right here, 900 AD. Right up here. While being subdued and placed to slavery in North America, approximately 900 AD. All right? We know 900 AD in the Gregorian year is will be around like in the BC era, late BC era, because we know BC 1 and AD 1 is actually 950, 951 AD, Annus Dominius, in the year of our Lord. All right, not BC, where Christ is not there. All right, and we know that in regards to creation story under the 6,000 year time frame given by the Hebrew calendar, 1 AD or 1 BC, which in the Berbian is 951 to 950, is actually the beginning of existence of creation. All right. So if God is creating, then there's people here creating, should be the ones recreating. And this is the time of what we call the Anglo-Saxons. And we know the Anglo-Saxons or the Angles, English denotes to those angels, what we know are messengers, which you're going to qualify again today through this lesson. All right.
Say it again. 10 minutes. Thank you, brother. So these white people who are in Mesoamerica are theorized to be Vikings. That's the first theory that they have here.
You hear that? He said Vikings.
600 to 900 AD, this period for the Temple of the Warriors. So you have white people here prior to the Columbus expeditions. Now, the reason why this is important is, one,
he says from 600 to 900 AD. That is the same time of the Gregorian mission, 597 AD. All right? Okay, that goes back to the time of the Christianization of those living in what we call Kent. All right, by what we call Æthelwold. And Æthelwold said that even though he was married to a Frankish woman of the Merovingian dynasty, where the Carolingian dynasty is sitting down from, started by Clovis I, they said that Christianity or Rome was never even affecting Great Britain at that time, which we're going to qualify, which we claim to be descendants on. And we know under the Anglo-Sphere, Great Britain is a part of the Anglo-Sphere. All right. We know when you get into the Anglo-Saxon, then that involves the territory that's connected to the continent north and up in northern Europe. All right. Let's get busy. So he said they were Vikings. All right.
Theory of disease and disease wiping out Native Americans when Columbus came. First of all, these white populations were here upwards of 500 years before Columbus and the other explorers came. Here's more depictions of them from the Temple of Warriors. You can see they were used to row the boats. Here they are. Look at this. Look at this. Look at these pictures. This is the Eurasian type being locked up by the dark-skinned aboriginals in this area with the feathers who used to dye their hair blonde, like you see Devin Haney and other people and hip-hop artists do today. Epic memory. All right? This is directly from the Temple of Warriors. The dark-skinned Aboriginal natives who have a connection all the way up to
slave traders
that I just mentioned.
All right. Slave traders.
And these more Nordic types who are all
Nordic
here depicted in the scene.
Did you hear that?
So,
Nordic.
That becomes important because it's further depiction of Aboriginals in their proper phenotypical descriptions. And then going further, it shows them interacting with white people in a place that you want the primary source, go to the Temple of Warriors.
All right.
Let's read the books.
Enough of that.
Go to the Temple of Warriors.
Let's go to some proof. Let's go to some real proof. All right. Let's go to real proof. That debate was against, let me just find the parties. The parties involved in that debate, was Brother Jabari, the Egyptian, and Dr. Chief Ali. Are Black people Aboriginal Americans or African? All right. That was the topic. And as you can see, Dr. Chief Ali said that the Native Americans here, going from the Powhatan, were actually the Olmecs or the Mexican, all right, amalgamating, all right? We know that Olmecs encompassing not just Mexico, but always the territory encompassing Louisiana, Mississippi, Ohio, etc., okay? So But those stories are trapped in a time capsule, all right? But we want to know, how did this story get trapped in the time capsule? And the only one way we can find that is to find out who created the time capsule, all right? In regards to the so-called indigenous people that they're calling all Mexican, Mayans, Aztecs, and whatever else out there. All right, we have to go back to the origin, because he associating the original people here, which we can know that, which I'm telling that the Olmecs were the Anglo-Saxons. All right, that's what I'm telling you. That's who they were, because the same tumulus monuments that you see here in North America, you see in Anglo-Saxon times. They were called tumulus. All right, Stonehenge. All right, yes, burial mounds. That's what you see here. That's part of what we call the original Anglo-Spare. So without further ado, let's qualify this. Let me just type this in Viking. We're talking about North America. All those who are viewing this, please go back and tell those on that platform, come holler at your king. All right? Come holler at your king. Viking, make sure you see this. Viking is a modern name given to seafaring people, originally from Scandinavia. This is where the word Saxon comes from. All right? Present-day Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, who from the 8th to the late 7th century raided, pirates, traded, and settled throughout parts of what we call Europe. They also voyaged as far as the Mediterranean, North Africa, Middle East, Greenland, and Finland, present-day Newfoundland and Canada, North America. You get into the Viking Leif Erikson. Right now they got shows on Netflix, and all talking about Ashton and Edmund. Right now, they're talking about that. All right. Let's move further. All right. Expert sailors and navigators of the characteristics longship, Vikings established Norse settlements and government in the British Isles. All right. The British Isles goes back to what we call the Kingdom of Albion. Either the Kingdom of Kingdom of Albion is either called the Kingdom of Albion or the Kingdom of Alba. All right. Kingdom of Albion or the Kingdom of Alba. Take your pick. All right. The Kingdom of Alba goes back to the British Isles that were invaded by what we call Northmen, or what we call Vikings from Norway. All right, which are what we said Scandinavian tribes. The Faroe Islands, Iceland, Greenland, Normandy, and the Baltic coast, as well as along the Dnieper and Baltic trade routes across modern-day Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine, where they were also known as Varangians. The Norman, North Gales, Rus people, Pharisees, and Icelanders emerged from these North colonies. At one point, a group of Rus Vikings went so far south that after briefly being bodyguards for the Byzantine Emperor, they attacked the Byzantine city of Constantinople. Okay? So we know Byzantine Empire is a part of Constantinople. All right? Yes, the Byzantine Empire is a part of Constantinople. Yes, the Ottoman Empire is a part of Constantinople. Yes, the Roman Empire is a part of Constantinople. Yes, the Latin Empire is a part of Constantinople, all started by Constantine. All right? Which established the Council of Nicene, where all your doctors of church originated from, qualified by Pope Barnabas XIII, backdating it all the way back to Pope Saint Peter. All right, Saint Peter lived at the time of 1 AD, which we know in the Berber count is 950-951. All right, let's continue. Let's go right back there. In English. All right. I ain't showing you pictures. All right. I'm showing you documentary proof. Yes, it's from Wikipedia and encyclopedia, but you see these little edits right here? You can go right there and check your source. All right. Right there and check your source. So I'm just not showing pictures and cut and paste and stuff. I'm showing you stuff going back to the illuminated manuscripts that originated from these monasteries, which we say we are the descendants of, because they were our predecessors. All right. The earliest reference to Whitsing in English source is from the Epinal Effort Glossary, which dates to around 700 AD. The glossary Latin translation for Whitsing is Piraticum, or pirate in modern English, whereas the first known attack of Viking raiders in England was at Linden's Farm. About 93 years later, we know, as I showed you in my last video, Linden Farm goes back to what we call the illuminated manuscripts, because Linden Farm was goes back to manuscripts created by Linden Farm, all right, which is the Anglo-Saxon. All right, where we at now? All right. In Old English, the word witching appears in the Anglo-Saxon poem Wittish, probably from the 9th century. The word was not regarded as reference to nationality, with other terms such as Northmen and Danes being used for that. You hear that? Northmen and Danes, very important. In Arcera's Latin work, The Life of King Alfred, the Danes are referred to as pagans. Historical Janet Nelson asserts that the paganity had become the Vikings throughout the standard translation of the word, even though there is a clear evidence that it was used as synonymous for Danes. While Alfred Christensen's avers that in a mistranslation made at the instance of the publisher, the word witching does not occur in any preserved Middle English text. All right. Let me see if I can go on. Okay, we move forward. Vikings. So we know for that, we got to go here. The Battle of Brunanburh. All right. The Battle of Brunanburh. All right, everybody pull that up. I'm about to teach y'all today. Sorry about that. Let's not go to the battle. Let's go to Æthelwold, King of Kent. Let's go there. Æthelwold. I owe this to Archbishop, my Archbishop. Thank you, man. Appreciate your work. Æthelwold of Kent. Let's start there since we're talking about Vikings. All right. Since we're talking about Vikings, let's start there. Æthelwold of Kent. Æthelwold of Kent goes back to what we call the conversion of the Anglo-Saxon by the Gregorian mission. Matter of fact, let's start there. We're called the third typical English Church of England, not the Church of England. All right. Let's start at the Church of England and work our way up. The Church of England. Come on. The Church of England is the established Christian Church of England. It traces history to the Christian Church recorded as the existed in the Roman province of Britain by the 3rd century into the 6th century Gregorian mission to Kent, led by Augustine of Canterbury. Its adherents are called the Anglicans, all right, who are Protestants, contrast to the English, which are called the Angles, or the Anglo people, all right. Back to the 3rd century, so that automatically takes you back to Constantine, all right, Constantinople. And the English church renounced papal authority in 1534 when Henry VIII annulled his marriage with Catherine of Aragon. So that was dealing with the Lancaster branch. All right. The Lancastrian branch was a branch that descended down from Edward III. All right. Edward III's son was John Gaunt. All right. Which started the problems that took place, which resulted in what we call the War of the Roses or the 100-Year Wars, the First and Second 100-Year War. All right. Region: England, Wales, Isles of Man, Channel Island, Continental York, and Morocco. That's the territory that the Church of England followed. Right here. In the Middle Ages, we're only concerned about the Middle Ages. Religion in medieval England and Anglo-Saxon Christianity. There is evidence of early Christianity in Roman Britain as early as the 3rd century. There we go, back to the 3rd century. After the fall of the Roman Empire, part of Constantinople, England was conquered by the Anglo-Saxons, who were soon to be pagans, and the Celtic Church was confined to Cornwall and Wales. In 597, Pope Gregory sent missionaries to England to Christianize the Anglo-Saxons. Once again, Anglo-Saxons. We know Saxons are the remnant of other tribes who migrated to what they call the British Isles, all right? These are your Danes, all right? And some of the Danes were Benedict. When we get into Canute the Great, Harold Godwinson, all right, they aligned themselves with the government of Westminster and the kings of Wessex, all right? This mission was led by Augustine of Canterbury under the authority of Pope Gregory I, which was one of the popes at that time that descended down what we call the doctrines of the church as established by Pope Boniface XIII in the 12th century, because Pope Boniface XIII also assisted in what we call the Scottish independence, all right? Scottish independence was a conflict between Hiberno Scottish descendants, which were Scottish who were Frankish in ancestry, all right? Frankish in ancestry, and that also goes back to what we call the Scottish Scone, the Stones of Scones, what we talk about today as well. It says that this mission was led by Augustine of Canterbury, who became the first Archbishop of Canterbury. The Church of England considered 597 the start of its formal history, all right? So this going back to the canon clergy, all right? Contrast to the monks, all right? This is canon clergy because the monks of the Benedictine monastery, let me rephrase that. The Augustinian branch might have had canon clergies, which might have been described as monks, but you had a different monastery religious societies. You had the Augustinians, you had the Benedictines, you had the Cistercians, you also had the Dominican friars, the Franciscans. So there was a bunch of religious societies associated with the trust of the inheritance, going back to that estate as promised to Jesus for all his subjects, his disciples, his followers. All right. This is the inheritance that Jacob was talking about when he fell asleep, when the Jacob's ladder ascended to earth and the angel was ascending up and down. And the Lord was speaking to Jacob, i.e. Israel, about the promised inheritance, i.e. the entail estate. We know what entail estate denotes to acquire possession, all right? Acquire possession, it denotes to free from encumbrances, all right? And the only person that's free from encumbrances is the sovereign. When you're dealing with the abstract story, the sovereign will be the Lord, will be control of the land and will acquire possession, all right? If there's no acquired possession, then there's acquired usement. That's such as tenancy, all right? A feudal tenure, all right? A land pattern, a deed, because there's encumbrances now as set by the grantor, which is the situation we find ourselves in now, right? Because we can't associate ourselves with the original grantor of the estate that was promised from the abstract story to the concrete. And for us to understand that, we must get to those who were controlling the estate, going all the way back to the what we call the Holy Land. All right, it was called the Holy Land, or what we call Jerusalem, and the only one that can control Jerusalem was the King of Peace. And the only person called the King of Peace in historical time, going back to time immemorial, is King Edgar the Peaceful. All right, let's get busy. All right. So we understand that the Church of England goes all the way back to the time of Pope Gregory I, which was one of the Roman Catholic popes who was in charge of the bishops of the Church of England, all right, of the Church of England, which automatically trickled down to Henry VIII of the House of Tudors from the Lancaster branch, which is the cadet branch of the Plantagenet crown, started by Henry II, the son of Godfrey V, Count of Anjou, son of Folk, ruler of Jerusalem, all right, which is going to be very important in my close because I'm telling you, your king is bad, all right? All right, so how we see that now? The Church of England, all right? Pope Gregory of Kent, all right, mention the Kent. So now let's go to Ethelbert. Ethelbert was king of Kent from about 589 until his death. The 8th century monk Bede is his ecclesiastical history of English people. Bede lived in the time he was called Bede, Saint Bede the Venerable. All right, he lived in the 1st century A.D. Let's see. Pardon, not the 1st century A.D. Born in 673 A.D. All right, 673 A.D. It says right here. Was an English monk and an author and scholar. He was one of the greatest teachers and writers during the Middle Ages. All right. And his famous work, Ecclesiastical History of the English People, gained him the title the Father of English History. He served as the monastery of St. Peter's and the companion monastery of St. Paul in the Kingdom of Northumbria of Angles. Everybody see that? All right. Let's go back. Ethelbert was the son of Emeric, succeeding him as king according to the chronicle. He married Bertha, Christian daughter of Charibert I, the king of Franks. You hear that? Franco, Hibernia. These are your Northmen. These are your Vikings. These are your invaders, all right? Yes, Bertha was from the Merovingian dynasty, who birthed the Carolingian dynasty, all right? The Merovingian dynasty was started by Clovis I. It says, he married Bertha, the Christian daughter of Charibert, king of the French, thus building an alliance with the most powerful state in contemporary Western Europe. We're talking about Constantinople. The marriage probably took place before he came to the throne. Bertha's influence may have led to Pope Gregory I's decision to send Augustine as a missionary from Rome to Scone Abbey. All right? Scone Abbey, where the Stone of Scones were there. All right? Let's look at Ethelbert's genealogy or relationship to France. Very important. Ancestry is centered in, no, not that. Right here. There are many indications of close relations between Kent and the Franks. Ethelbert's marriage to Bertha, Bertha certainly connected the two courts, although not as equals. The Franks would have thought of Ethelbert as an under-king. There is no record that Ethelbert ever accepted the Continental king as his overlord, and as we know, overlord means sovereign. And as a result, historians are divided on the true nature of the relationship. Evidence for an explicit Frankish overlord of king comes from a letter from a Pope Gregory the Great to Theodoric, king of Burgundy, and Theudebert, king of Austria. The letter concerned Augustine's mission to Kent in 597. And then Gregory says that he believes that you wish your subjects in every respect to be converted to the faith in which you, their king, Lord, stand. It may be that this is a paper for Paul compliant, rather than a description of the relationship between the kingdom. It is also has been suggested that Leonhard, Bertha's chaplain, was intended as a representative of the Frankish church in Kent, which also could be interpreted as the evidence of overlordship. All right. Before we move forward, let's check out Bertha, who is his wife, because she said she might have been the reason for the Augustine to come to the Isles of Thane and convert the Anglo-Saxon, i.e., the Anglos, to Christianity. All right. So who is Bertha Kent, his consort? Saint Bertha or Saint Aldebrecht, and or after 601, was the Queen of Kent, who influence led to the Christianization of Anglo-Saxon England. She was canonized as a saint for her role and established during that period of English history. All right, everybody see that? The house she comes from is that of the Merovingians. All right, everybody see that? Very important to understand who the Merovingians are. All right, so let's see. The Merovingians. Everybody see that? Put this in your notes. Because we're not talking about over there. We're talking about over here in the Anglosphere. The Merovingian was a ruling family of the Franks from around the middle of the 5th century until 751. They first appeared as the kings of the Franks in Rome in the Roman army of northern Gaul. By 509, they had united all the Franks and northern Gallo-Romans under their rule. That's going back to Pope Gregory I. All right. This conquered most of Gaul, defeating the Visigoths and the Burgundians, and also extended their rule into Raetia and Germania to eliminate Bavaria and Saxon, accepted their lordship. As I said, Saxons were Northmen. The Merovingian realm was the largest and most powerful of the states of Western Europe following the breaking of the empire of Theodoric the Great. Let's move forward. All right. The dynasty named medieval Latin Merovingi derived from the unattested Frankish form akin to the unattested English Merovingi, with a final ing, which means belonging to. Being a typical Germanic patron suffix, the name derives from Salian King Merovech, who is at the center of many legends. Unlike the Anglo-Saxon royal genealogies, listen very close. Unlike the Anglo-Saxon royal genealogies, the Merovingians never claimed to descend from God, nor is there any evidence that they were regarded as sacred. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? The Merovingians' long hair distinguished them among the Franks, who commonly cut their hair short. Contemporaries sometimes refer to them as long-haired kings. All right? We see that. Right here. Pay attention. The first well-known Merovingian king was Childeric I. His son Clovis I died in 511, converted to the Nicene Christianity until the Franks conquered most of Gaul. All right? We know the Nicene Christianity goes back to what? Constantine. All right? Constantinople. All right? We must understand that. All right? Clovis I. And remember what Dr. Shifali said, that the Mayans, Mexicans, were Vikings. That's what he said. Clovis, Frankish, was the first king of the Franks to unite all of the Frankish tribes under one rule, changing its form of leadership from a group of petty kings to rule by a single king, ensuring that the kingship was passed down to his heir. Now we know that they said that the Merovingians never claimed to descend from God. We already said that. He is considered to have been the founder of the Merovingian dynasty, so that means he never descended from God. All right? Which ruled the Frankish kingdom for the next 2 centuries, Clovis is important to the historiography of France as the first king of what will become France. Everybody sees that. Everybody sees that. Let's move forward. Clovis' wife was who? Clotilde. Clotilde. Let's see who she was real quick. Clotilde, if that's the name, Clotilde, from Frankish, or perhaps both famous in battle, means perhaps both famous in battle, was the queen of the Franks. All right. She was supposedly descended from the Gothic king Anthoneric and became the second wife of the Frankish king Clovis I. The Merovingians, to which her husband belonged, to rule the Frankish kingdom for over 2,000 years. Venerated as a saint by the Roman Catholic Church. All right. She also joined the Nicene Council in her religion. All right, we're gonna move forward. That was his wife. Oh, right here. Clovis is also, make sure you see this. Clovis is also significant because of his baptism in 508, largely at the behest of his wife Clotilde, who will later be venerated as a saint for this act. Celebrated today in both Roman Catholic Church and Eastern Orthodox churches, they adopted by Clovis the Nicene Christianity, as opposed to Arianism of most other Germanic tribes, led to the widespread conversion among the Frankish people to religious unification across what is now modern day France. All right. Let's see. All right. Let's look at the Clovis culture. Clovis culture. Here in North America, we know King Edgar was called Rich and Spears, right? He was the first king of the Anglo-Saxon kings, of the kings of Wessex, to ever live without any war. He was called King Edgar the Peaceful, all right? He was the reformer of the English Benedictine monastery that was going all the way back to the what we call the Battle of Brunanburh, or what was it called again? The Battle of Brunanburh, all right, going back to Alfred the Great's son, Edward the eldest son, Æthelstan, all right? Æthelstan, Edmund I, which was the father of King Edward the Peaceful, were all in line with the uh, uh, reformation of the monasteries as a result of them being societed by canon clergy going all the way back to Constantinople, all right, under Augustine of Hippo. All right, we're going to see that. Let's see here. Clovis culture. We ain't talking about over here in Europe, Great Britain, Scotland, Ireland. We're talking about here in North America, all right? Because it bears this name. The Clovis culture is a prehistoric Paleo-American archaeological culture named for distinct stones and bone tools found in close association with the Pleistocene fauna, particularly two Columbian mammals, at Blackwater locality number 1 near Clovis, New Mexico. All right. We know a lot of stuff took place in New Mexico. All right. That's why there's nothing there. This was the race of our history. All right. The only human burial that has been directly associated with the tools for Clovis culture include the remains of the infant boy from found in Montana. The researchers named Enzic-1, paleogenic allergic of Enzic-1, ancient nuclear, mitochondria, and Y chromosome DNA. So they not only talk about mitochondrial DNA, they're going into what they call nuclear DNA. Nuclear DNA goes into what's called the what they call the what's that term? The cell's nucleus. All right, it goes into the cell nucleus of that information embedded in the cell. All right, which originated from the what we call the prokaryocyte. The prokaryocyte is extraterrestrial. The eukaryocyte is what created on this planet to allow the development of multicellular units for us to become who we are today. But the origin of who we are today is locked in our DNA. All right, DNA, family, community, confirm what we call confraternity. All right, a group or society. Let's get it. All right. So you said the Clovis culture is associated not to people, but tools. All right. But tools. All right. So who are these people identified by the Clovis culture in reference to the evidence that we got here, which is tools? Because we know the true God's people goes back to God's messenger. We know God's messenger were the English, i.e., those who are those living on the land of the Anglos. All right. And we know the Anglos and English and Anglo is one and the same. All right. It's synonymous. All right. Over here, because North America is of the what we call the Anglo sphere, i.e., the circle. We know sphere means circle. All right. So we know that. Let's get into the origin of the name Clovis to get an identity of who these people are and the origin of the name Clovis. All right. Because we know that the Clovis, who was the founder of the Merovingian dynasty, said they never descended from God. All right. Like the Anglo-Saxon genealogy. All right. We just read it for ourselves. So Clovis. And as you can see, my grandfather Jefferson, i.e., Godfrey, son of God. All right, Godfrey, son. Son, Frey means Lord, and God means son, or GEO, earth. You can spell it GEODFREYSON, or you can spell it GODFREYSON. No matter how you say it, no matter how you slice it, it's all a part of the whole. All right. Early origins of the Clovis family. All right. We ain't talking about the tools. We're talking about the family. All right. The surname Clovis was first found in Berkshire, where they held their family seat as lords of the manor after the Battle of Hastings in 1066. The Battle of Hastings in 1066 go back into what we call the Canute the Great. Canute the Great was a Dane. He was a Viking, a Northman who invaded England in 1066 when Edward the Confessor died, who was the son of Edward the Exile, who was the son of Edmund Ironside, who was the son of Æthelwold the Unready, who was the son of who? King Edward the Peaceful, who was the son of Edmund the First, who was the brother of Æthelstan, who was the son of King Alfred the Great, who established or reformed the English Benedictine Reform under what they call Saint Benedict of Mercy. All right, these are facts. The surname Clovis was first found in Berkshire, where they held their family seat as lords of the manor after the Battle of Hastings. William, Duke of Normandy, that's William the Conqueror, having prevailed over King Harold, granted most of Britain to his main victorious barons. It was not uncommon to find a baron or a bishop with 60 or more lordships. All right, scattered throughout the country. These have gained to his sons, nephews, and other junior lines of his family. They became known under tenants. All right, overlords. They adopted a Norman system of surname which identified the unintended with his holdings so as to distinguish him from single stems of the family. Everybody hear that? All right. It's recorded in the Domesday Book, created by William the Conqueror, and we see that the names means all is in God. All right. You see it right there, but it has to do with what we call North America. All right. So that takes me here to the Anglo-sphere. Everybody pull that up real quick. Okay. The Anglo-sphere, the sphere of influence. The Anglo-sphere is the Anglo-American sphere of influence. With a core group of nations that today maintain close political, diplomatic, and military cooperation. While the nation includes in different sources vary, the Anglosphere is usually not considered to include all countries where English is an official language. Remember, because you can have the official language as English, but it ain't no English people there. All right. So it doesn't fall under the government influence of the English, like as they say here in the Anglosphere. Like America. In America, the national language is English, but we are the English people. Because if the national language is English, then the national law is English. Then that means that there must be English people for that national law, which is English, to be used. All right. This is why they're using foreign law here, which allows for the property to fall into what they call quiet possession, parts of quiet, what they call um, uh, quiet use. Quiet use is not the same as quiet possession. All right. Once again, quiet use is not the same as quiet possession. When there's a quiet use, then that means there are encompasses, which that means that there can be uh, 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 they're subject to what they call encumbrances as a result of the lack of an owner. All right, because the owner has what they call quiet possessorship. Quiet possessorship is required by having a quiet title. Quiet title is quieted the knowledge of who owns what once and for all. That's usually done by what we call a lis pendens. All right, to see who owns what. Most of the instruments that you have in regards to quiet use is nothing but a bill of warranty of use. All right, it doesn't show that you own anything. You must understand that. All right, it's called easement by prescription. An easement by prescription is a non-possessory use to use property that you don't own, and that's result by what we call prescription of sovereignty, the result from somebody acting as a sovereign. Why? Because the true sovereign is not there and there's no heirs. If there's no heirs, that means that all the land is streets as a result of interstate, meaning there are no heirs, and it comes up under what we call bona vacationia, which means abandoned property, which if it's not under the authority of the crown, under the authority of a sheep, which is the concept of the crown. All right. Then it falls under bona vacationia, which is over the lordship or the trustees that oversee it, which in the case it will be those who are acting as if they're the judicial officers of this land, which are truly not. Why? Because that was vested in the king and parliament. All right. And upheld by king and king's bench. Let's move forward. It says, while the nation included in different sources, very English is usually not is considered to include countries where English is an official language, so not synonymous with the spirit of the Anglophone, as I just said. Though commonly include nations are those that were formerly part of the British Empire and retain English language in the English common law. Did you hear that? You better look up Smith versus Alabama. There's only one common law, and that's the common law of England. That's the municipal law of every state in the Union. And in the common law, it must be looked at in light of that history, going back to what we call time immemorial. I'm giving you time immemorial now. All right. You just have to pick up the phone and listen. All right. You're home. Let's get busy. All right. Let's see. Anglo-sphere. We know that the Clovis culture is based off the Salian law. Salian law is based off the laws that Clovis culture or the Merovingians claim to use, which we know that's not the case. Let's prove it. Hey, Queen. Oh, not Clovis. Clovis the first. We know that Clovis I, the founder of the Merovingian dynasty, never claimed to descend from God. That's what y'all read. You've seen it for yourself. Where's that at? Now, they do have a descent. Yes, the Northmen do have a descent. They come from somewhere. That's up to you to find out for yourself if that's what you say you descended down from. All right? Because the Norsemen says they follow what they call Salian law. All right? If I can't find it, I just look it up. I'm thinking it's sure. Hold on, Merovingians. That's where it's at. Right here. How you doing, Bo? Let's see. Clovis. Where's that? Merovingians. We're talking about descent. We know Clovis under the family crest means all is in God. All right. We know that Clovis said, found in the Merovingian dynasty, said he never descended down from God. All right. Right here. I'm good. The name derives from Salian King Meroving. All right. That's what they said. Who is at the center of many legends, myth, folklore. All right. Once the custom law is forgotten, then it becomes folklore if the law is not written down to preserve the custom, which is now not in practice. All right. The people, English people are not here, but the customs has been preserved. All right. It's just for you, it's up to you to take back up that custom because the common law only becomes null and void when it's out of mind, out of sight. All right. Which allows for prescriptions to take place. All right. We know prescriptions of easements under prescription of sovereignty or easement by prescription is also subject to encompasses what we call reversion or remandment of the estate, if you know what that means. Majority of you don't, but that's okay. Why? Because it was not meant for you to understand. So unlike the Anglo-Saxon royal genealogies, the Merovingians never claimed descended from God, nor is there any evidence that they were regarded as sacred as a result of primogeniture, male firstborn, because we know in the Strathclyde, there's three ways in the state can be transferred. Either it can by what they call a male heir, which is called by entail, or it can be done by fee simple, which can be sold to anybody called subordination, and the process called recovery, or it can seek back to the crown, or in this case will be the abandoned property, which in the modern day is called the state. And we know the state was the original colony. We know the original colony was under the crown. So if the under Article 6 of the original Constitution of the Article of Confederation says they still pledge at the original contracts and treaties made back then, which was the supreme law of the land, then guess what, everyone? You still own crown property. You know, crown property is intel. Intel is land is personified by the monarch who personifies the crown, which represents what we call the English throne. Okay? So once again, the Merovingians, i.e. Clovis I, i.e. those who claim to be the Clovis culture in North America, were not God people. They took on the identity of the God people, but they were not God's people. Why? Because we know that we were at war with the Merovingians through time immemorial. Yeah, we was war with these Vikings and Norsemen all the way back in the Middle Ages, going back to Alfred the Great, which their alliance goes back to Constantinople, which was the reason for the conversion of the Anglo-Saxon brothers into Christianity, which goes into the stories going back into those Coptic Orthodox religious societies, which all stem from Constantinople, going back to Constantine. All right, Constantine don't go back to 1 AD. 1 AD in the Gregorian year, which never came into existence until 1582, was under the authority of the Berber calendar, which is in the year 950, which goes to the understanding of the kings of Wessex. All right, which you're getting today. Let's go there. Let's get there. All right. Merovingians. So they know Merovingians, i.e. Clovis I, never descended from God. And we're talking about God's people here in North America, not over there, because we know we're in the Anglo-sphere, all right? We're on the Anglo-sphere. We're on the crusade. We know crusade was to be gone from home as a result of business that was going on. And some might not return home, as in the case. All right, if you ain't God's people, because home is the Holy Land. And we know the Holy Land is associated with Jerusalem, and we got different interpretations of what we call Jerusalem. Because we know Jerusalem only means the city of peace. All right, and we know Jerusalem, as told in the Middle Ages, only qualifies that goes back to time of memorial, which is time of the mind, going back to those stories that's told in the Bible. And we know the Bible was written by King James, which was a king of England under the king of England de facto, though, because we know he goes back to those stories under what they call the English Benedictine Reformation, under the Battle of Brunanburh, which was done by Alfred's son, Æthelstan, when they were being invaded by these Vikings here in North America. Yes, we know it's North America because New Jersey was under the authority of the crown. And we know New Jersey was called part of the original Channel Islands, which was part of the Duchy of Normandy, which was surrendered back to England under what we call the Treaty of Westminster of 1153, as a result of the anarchy, which we'll talk about today, as a result of William Adelin dying in the White Ship, right, which was the result of which violated an agreement or a treaty made with Fulk V, ruler of Jerusalem. He was king of Jerusalem. His daughter, Margaret of Anjou, was supposed to marry William Adelin, who was the son of Henry I, the son of William the Conqueror, who invaded England. But as a result of him dying, Fulk V, Godfrey the Fifth Count of Anjou's son, the ruler of Anjou in the Kingdom of England, as a result of his marriage to Matilda, Empress of Matilda, who was a daughter of Matilda, Margaret of Wessex, which is now called Margaret of Scotland, as a result of her marriage to Michael III, who was king of Kingdom of Alba. All right. So the Fulk V, the king of Jerusalem, who was a part of what we call the rulers of Anjou, who were warned with the Capetine dynasty before the Anglo-Saxon story even came into an existence. All right, because this all concerns Jerusalem, and we know the kings of Jerusalem was started by who? Godfrey of Bouillon, the son of Eustace II from the House of Flanders, and guess who was the wife of William the Conqueror? Matilda of Flanders. All right, and Matilda of Flanders, or the House of Flanders, was started by who? Charles the Simple. Charles the Simple was the descendant of Charles the Bald, who are descended from the Carolingians, who were descended from the Merovingians, as we said right here, claimed to never descend from God. These are straight, undisputable facts. All right, let's move forward. Let's prove it. Anglo. Let's just straighten this out right now. Everybody's seen that Anglo history, family crest, coat of arms. France and England. All right. The Anglo family name is derived from the coastal landscape of the medieval France known as Normandy. All right. So Anglo and Normandy is one. You see it. Their name originated with the early members who was a Norman resident of English extraction. Did y'all hear that? Of English extraction, the name Langlos refers to the Angles, a race who once inhabited England. All right, we're talking about those angels again, because we're going to go there in a second, after whom the country is named. Okay, so let's go to Angles. Since it just said the name Langos refers to the Angles, so let's go to Angles. The history of the Angles, family crest and coats of arms. The history of the name Angles name begins with the ancient Anglo-Saxon tribes of Britain. The name is derived from Old English person named Angel, which is derived from Latin Angelus, which is the Greek Angelos, which means messenger. The person name also appeared from feminine name Angela and Angelina. The name is denoted for one who acts as a religious messenger or a messenger from God. All right, we know the Merovingians under Clovis I never descend from God, and the family crest and coats of arms. And Clovis says all is in God. And we know that that culture over here was in North America called the Clovis culture, which goes back to the culture that deals with spirits. And we know King Edgar name means rich in spirits. All right. means rich in spirit. Why I know that? Because I'm the reincarnation of King Edward the Peaceful. We'll qualify that later on in this lecture. All right. So we know the word angels, angel, angelus, however you try to pronounce it, means messenger of God, which is a corruption of the word which English is a corruption of. Let's go to English. I talked about this in my past lecture. It's available in Scotland, England, Ireland, and Scotland. We know Ireland and Scotland didn't unify with England until the Treaty of Union in 1707. All right. Prior to that, they had separate parliaments. All right. They had separate kings. All right. They had a separate jurisdictional as well. The name English, once again, I repeat, the name English comes from the Old English word English, originally used to describe the Angles as distinct from the Saxons. All right. It also appeared in the Latinized form Anglicus. In the Scottish English borderland, it is thought that the name was used to refer to an Englishman or English speaker, as opposed to Gaelic speaker. And we know Gaelic for Scottish is what we call Alba. And we know the Latin word for it's called Scotia, means land of the Scots. We know land of the Scots is referring to the British Israelism Association as those Israelites who descended from Jacob, and we know Jacob descended from Isaac, and Isaac descended from Abraham, and Abraham descended from Shem, which is those who descended from the tribes of Noah. All right. So you must understand that the abstract and the concrete are two different stories. And I always say, he who read your books, set your timeline, and time never was when we was not. There's a life of time that English began, the time will come when we will be no more. And that's up for you to decide, because as far as we're concerned, the English are still here. All right, let me move forward. Let me just let my brother know I'm doing the class. I'm doing the class, bro.
I was just making sure you all right.
I'm good. I love you too. All right. All right. Let's get it. All right. So it says here, the word English, we know ish is also relative to belonging to. Angle, all right? The old Scottish form of English formerly applied to the descendants of Englishmen. You hear that? Once again, I repeat. The old Scottish form of English formerly applied to the descendants of Englishmen settled in Scotland, assuming to be called the Kingdom of Æthelwold. We know it's called the Kingdom of Albia, because the Kingdom of Albia is associated and attested by giants, which existed in the time of the Bible, going back to the creation story, which is under the Hebrew calendar. It's the year 3761. And 3761 and the Gregorian calendar, which we know never existed because the Gregorian calendar was not created in 1582, and that would automatically be in the Berber calendar, because the first English breakdown year would start at the Norman Conquest. Prior to that, it was only the Berber calendar. And we know the Berber calendar is those who are falsely called Coptics or Egyptians or whatever else you come up, Ethiopian, because we know they were called Libyan Berbers. And the Libyan Berbers is the Berber calendar, and that's why it's called BC. That's why it's called BC. No other reason. It said the old Scottish form of English formerly applied to the descendants of the Englishman settled in Scotland, especially a privilege taken by Malcolm III. Malcolm III was married to Matilda of Wessex, Margaret of Wessex, now called Margaret of Scotland. All right? Now called Margaret of Scotland as a result of marriage, and her daughter was Matilda of Scotland, who married Godfrey V, Count of Anjou, son of Fulk, ruler of Jerusalem, the founder of the Plantagenet dynasty, while his father went on to rule Jerusalem. All right, he took it from the de facto rulers, going back to the first King Godfrey of Bouillon, as a result of them descending down from the House of Flanders. All right, Eustace II's son, Godfrey of Bouillon, his son, Baldwin I, his son, Baldwin II, all those were de facto rulers until it was taken back from Fulk V. And at the time of Fulk V, Jerusalem came to its greatest height. I'm going to show you by way of them portrayed in the movie called Kingdom of Heaven. I'm going to show you. All right? They're telling you what's going on. Let's move forward. Okay, where you want to go? Don't do this to me. All right, let's see. let's go back to the Viking invasions. All right, let's go there now. Since we know we're talking about Vikings, let's go to the English Benedictine Reform, because I want to show you how Alfred the Great, King Edgar the Peaceful, Edmund I, King Edgar the Peaceful, our Jesus Christ, father, was all battering Vikings at this particular time. All right, the invasions of Northmen at this particular time. All right, and that was a result of those being influenced by what they call those canon clergy that resulted from those clergy that resulted from the Scottish in relevance to what we call Scone Abbey. We know Scone Abbey was created by canons of the Augustine, which goes back to Augustine of Hippo, which is one of the founding fathers, going back to Augustine of Hippo, who was assumed to be a Libyan Berber from Africa, from what was called Hippo Regius. All right, he was a so-called Libyan, but he was affiliated with the Roman Catholic Church. All right, going back to Constantinople. And we know Constantinople only came around in the 3rd century, contrary to the 1st century AD. All right, so let's move forward. Where's we at? English Benedictine Reformation. First, before we do that, let's associate the groups. Let's deal with the Anglo-Norman, Scottish-Norman affiliation, the group of people who they were associated with, so we can distinguish who. Because we know Anglo, as we said, denotes to both Anglo. It doesn't say nothing but Scotland. It also said it's distinguished from the Saxons. All right, it's distinguished from the Saxons. So let's give it Anglo-Norman. Anglo-Norman. Anglo-Norman were the medieval ruling classes of England. All right, following the Norman conquest, and were primarily a combination of ethnic Normans, North French, Flemings, Bretons, and Anglo-Saxons. A small number of Normans had earlier befriended future Anglo-Saxon kings of England, who Edward the Confessor. All right, during his exile, his mother homeland of Normandy, i.e., Angles or Anglo, because Anglo means Normandy under the family crest coat of arms, which is in France. When he returned to England, some of them went with him. As such, there were Normans already settled in England prior to the conquest. Edward's successor, Harold Godwinson, a Danish, was defeated by Duke William the Conqueror at the Battle of Hastings of Normandy. It's right here, at the Battle of Hastings, leading to William's ascension to the English throne. Everybody see that, right? The victorious Normans formed a ruling class in Britain, distinct from although intermarrying wife, the native population. Over time, their native evolved from the continental Old Normans to the distinct Anglo-Norman language. Anglo-Normans quickly established control over all of England, as well as part of Wales, called the Cambrian Normans. After 1130, part of the southern and eastern Scotland came under Anglo-Norman rule, i.e. Scottish Normans, in return for the support of David I's conquest. The Norman conquest of Ireland in 1169 saw Anglo-Norman and the Cambrian Normans settle vast swaths of Ireland, becoming the Irish Normans. All right? So let's look at the Scottish Normans. This is getting Scottish Frankish, called Hibernia. Scoto-Norman. When we say Scoto or Scottish, we're talking about Scotland. All right? We're talking about Scotland, the land of the Scots. All right? We know the land of the Scots goes back to the stone to scone. It goes back to the dream Jacob had about the birthright that his father promised him. When we're talking about our fathers, I showed you my grandfather before I started out. His last name Jefferson, and he had the surname, so that means that under that surname he had an inheritance. And we come from Mississippi, and we know that territory, prior to our understanding, was under territory ruled by Frankish kings or Franco kings, because we know that when you get to the Treaty of Alliance in North America, it was a Franco alliance going all the way back to the All Alliance with Scottish and Frankish kings, which we see here, Scottish Normans, Franco-Scottish, or Franco-Gaelic. I mean, we know the Gaelic word for the kingdom of Scott is called the kingdom of Alba. All right? It says the term Scoto-Norman, I don't believe I'm remembering this like this. I'm amazed at myself. The term Scotto-Norman, also Franco-Scottish or Franco-Gaelic, is used to describe people, families, institutions, and the archaeological artifacts that are partly Scottish in some sense and partly Anglo-Norman in some sense. It is used to refer to people or things of Norman, Anglo-Norman, French, or even Flemish or Breton origin, but who are associated with Scotland in the Middle Ages, like Scoto-Anglo-Saxon. It is also used for any of these things which they exhibit syncretism between French or Anglo-French culture on the one hand and Gaelic culture on the other. All right? Let me read the next paragraph before we move on. For instance, King of Scotland between the reign of King David and the Stuarts, i.e. those one who wrote the Bible, period, are often described as Scotto-Norman. Did you hear that? Scottish Norman. It didn't say English Norman, it said Scottish Norman. All right? If that ain't a source for your Bible, I don't know what is. All right, just move forward. So you can see the distinguish. Now let's go to the English Benedictine Reform. The English Benedictine Reform. When we talk about English Benedictine Reform, we're also going to compare to the illuminated manuscript called the medieval manuscript, which I showed you in the last lecture that Brother Hashan was using to qualify his existence as a Hebrew Israelite, and using the origin of where it was. Their source was from Oxford University, but not realizing Oxford University goes back to the Middle Ages, was created by Henry II. All right, and it goes all the way back to the time of the original kings of Wessex. All right, back to Bede, who confirmed the English historical records based off their illuminated manuscripts. All right, let's get there. English Benedictine Reform, monasteristic reform of the English church in the late 10th century was a religious and intellectual movement in the later Anglo-Saxon period. All right. In the mid-10th century, almost the monasteries were staffed by secular clergy who were often married. All right. The reformers sought to replace them with celibate contemplative monks following the rule of Saint Benedict of Nursia. The movement was inspired by a continental movement called the Monastic Reform, and the leading figures were St. Dunstan, Archbishop of Canterbury, Æthelwold, Bishop of Winchester, and Oswald, Archbishop of York. All right, a little more syllabus on this. In the 7th and 8th century England, most monasteries were Benedictine. You hear that? But in the 9th century, learning and monasteristic declined severely. I wonder why. We're going to show you why, because Æthelwold of Kent is going to show you, and he wasn't even Anglo-Saxon. He was from Kent, and his wife was a Frankish wife from the Merovingian dynasty who never declaimed to be descendant of gods like the Anglo-Saxons, which we're reading about now. The first king being Alfred the Great, all right? And even going back further to Cinewith, all right? But for the sake of time, we're not going to discuss that. But in lieu of the English Benedictine Reformation, going back to the state of celibacy, and we know celibacy means isolation, being in confinement. You know what I'm saying? Restrictions. That's what celibacy means. All right. And in the 7th and 8th century England, most monasteries were Benedictine, but in the 9th century, leading to the monastic decline severely. Meaning the Benedictine, going back to the 6th century, under the Benedict of Nursia, declined as a result of the removal of monks to canon clergy. The court of Æthelstan, the son of Alfred the Great, who was the brother of Edmund I, the son of King Alfred, the son of King Edward the Peaceful, which was our Jesus Christ, was the first king of the whole England, who's cosmopolitan. When we say cosmo, we're dealing with not just on earth, but the stars, because that was told about in the Midrash, cosmology, which means the study of God's creation in you. All right. And the future reformers such as Dunstan, Æthelwold learned from the continental exponents of the Benedictine monasticism. The English movement became dominant. You hear that? At its greatest height under King Edgar, who supported the explosion of secular clergy from the monasteries and the cathedral chapters and their replacement with monks. The reformers had a close relation with the crown. We already know what the crown is. The crown is the English throne. The crown is intel, which all the properties reverts to in regards to what we call the statutes of mortmain, which means dead pledge, furthering its interest in depending in its support. All right. The artistic work of established by Æthelwold reached the highest standard of craftsmanship in your manuscript illustration. Sculptures of gold and silver were influenced both of England and on the continent. In his monasteries, learning reached a height of standard, produced competent prose and poetry, and the elaborate hermeneutical style of Latin favored in the attention of Merovingians. His Winchester schools played an important role of creating the standard vernacular of West Saxon literal language, and his proposal of Elphick of Enshaw was his most eminent written. Elphick of Enshaw was the one who created the Hexaptologh, and the Hexaptologh is called the 5 books of the Bible, which you call the Torah or the Pentateuch. All right? Y'all got a lot to learn. All right. All right, so we're talking about the English Benedictine Reform with the removal of secular clergy as a result of celibacy, right? Reframing. All right, let's go into it. Let's see. So it's called the English Benedictine Reform of the new ministers of Winchester. What is the new minister? Before we do that, I want you to go somewhere. All right, we're talking about the Vikings. All right, so we mentioned in this English Benedictine Reform that Æthelstan right here also took place in that as well as his father. All right, now this goes all the way back to the Battle of Brunanburh. All right, let's go there. The Battle of Brunanburh was fought in 937 between Æthelstan, King of England, and the alliance of Olaf Guthfrithson, King of Dublin, Constantine II, King of the Kingdom of Alba or Kingdom of Scotland, and Owain, King of Strathclyde. All right. So this was allegiance between the Scottish against the English. The battle is sometimes cited as the point of origin for the English national identity because prior to becoming English, they were called Angles. Historians such as Michael Livingston argued that the men who fought and died on the field forged in the political map of the future that remains, arguably making the Battle of Brunanburh one of the most significant battles in the long history, not just of England, but of the whole British Isles. You hear that? The whole British Isles. Now, who took place in this Battle of Brunanburh? The key figure is Constantine II. Who is Constantine II? Constantine II, born later 875, was an early king of Scotland known by the Gaelic name Alba. The kingdom of Alba, a name which appears in Constantine's lifetime, was situated in modern-day northern Scotland. Anybody hear that? His reign, like those of his predecessors, was dominated by the actions of Viking rulers in the British Isles, particularly the Unlamer, grandson, descendants of Imar, Ivar the Boneless. Ivar the Boneless. All right. During Constantine's reign, or part itself. Where's that? The bones. During Constantine's reign, the ruler of the southern kingdoms of Wessex and Mercia, later Kingdom of England, extended their authority northward into the disputed kingdom of Northumbria. All right. You see that? At first, the southern rulers allied with him against the Vikings, but in 934, Æthelstan, unprovoked, invaded Scotland, but by sea and land with a huge retinue that included 4 Welsh kings. He ravaged southern Alba, but there is no record of any battle. He was withdrawn by September. 3 years later, in 937, probably in retaliation for the invasion of Alba, King Constantine allied with Olaf Guthfrithson, Kingdom of Dublin, Owain of Dunbar, and Kingdom of Strathclyde. You see that? All right. Constantine reigned in 43 years, exceeded Scotland only by the William the Lion before the Unions of the Crowns in 1603. All right. That's going back into what we call King James the Sixth of Scotland and the King James the First is going to be the King of England. All right. Let's move forward. Let's go to Æthelstan since it involves him. Æthelstan means noble stone. We know Atheling means belonging to the noble family. Atheling means family, and Ing means belonging to. Æthelstan means noble stone. Was the king of the Anglo-Saxons from 924. Let me make sure y'all seen that. See this. Was king of the English from 927 to his death in 939. He was the son of King Edward the Elder and his wife Eowyn. Modern historians regarded him as the first king of England and one of the greatest Anglo-Saxon kings. He never married and had no children. He was succeeded by his half-brother, Edmund I. We know Edmund I was the son of King Edward the Peaceful, all right, which is our Jesus Christ, which I'm the reincarnation of. When Edward died in July 924, Æthelstan was accepted by the Mercian as king. His brother Æthelwold may have been recognized as king of Wessex, but died within 3 weeks of their father's death. Æthelstan encountered resistance in Wessex for several months and was not crowned until September 925. And in 927, he conquered the last remaining Viking kingdoms of York, making him the first Anglo-Saxon ruler of the whole of England. In 934, he invaded Scotland and forced Constantine II to submit to him. Æthelstan's rule was resented by the Scots and Vikings, and in 937, they invaded England. Æthelstan defeated them at the Battle of Brunanburh, a victory that gave him great prestige both in the British Isles and on the continent. After his death in 939, the Vikings seized back control of York and was not finally reconquered until 954. All right? Till 954. So that goes into the origin of New Minister Charter. All right? New Minister's Charter. Let's go there now. New Minister. New Minister was a Royal Benedictine abbey founded in 901 in Winchester in English county of Hampshire. Alfred the Great had intended, make sure y'all see this. Alfred the Great intended to build the monastery, but only got around to buying the land, okay? His son, Edward the Elder, finished the project according to Alfred's wishes with the help of St. Grinbald. Now remember, the land was being overtaken by invaders, all right? And these invaders goes back thousands and thousands of years, all right, of our ancestors. It just was restored to the time of Edward the Peace, and once again, they were invaded again, all right? You know, the Berber County was created by going back to the times of Shushan, all right, in 954. If I'm not mistaken, that was the 20, what was it, 23rd dynasty? 23rd or 22nd dynasty, all right? Shushan, or known as Shishak in the Book of Kings in your Bible, all right? So it's here. So it says here. Alfred's great had intended to build the monastery, but only got around to buying the land, all right? His son, Edward the Elder, finished the project according to Alfred, which is with the help of St. Grinbald, who became his first abbot. It stood so close to Old Minster that the voices of the two choirs merged with the chaotic results. The body of King Alfred was transferred to the new minister of St. Grinbald, joining him, and it was also given to the body of the Breton St. Judac or St. Joseph, making it an important pilgrimage center. It became the Benedictine House of 963. According to John Worcester, in 972, King Edgar ordered the Church of New Minister, begun by his father, King Edmund, going back to the Battle of Brunanburh, all right, which is considered Edmund I, which is King Edmund, and Æthelstan, which is the son of Alfred the Great, all right, but completed by himself to be solemnly dedicated. It is not known what part of the church was built. Queen Emma, the wife of Æthelwold and already King Edgar's son, added the head of St. Valentine in 1041, with the building of the new cathedral of Winchester after the Norman conquest of England. The monks of new minister was obliged to move Hyde Mead just outside the northern city walls, just finding what we call the Abbey of Hyde. All right, these are all the people associated with Alfred the Great, his wife Elsworth, and Elsworth, we know, was dark-skinned. Saint Grimoire, Edward the Elder, Alfred Igwit as well. All right. So that brings us to New Minister Charter. Since we talk about, first of all, let's go to Old Minister first. Because we know New Minister resulted from old New Minister of Winchester came from Old Minister of Winchester. So let's backtrack that. Old Minister of Anglo-Saxon Cathedral for the English Diocese of Wessex and the Winchesters is from 1660 to 1093 AD. All right, Anos Dominios. It stood on the site immediately north of the partial beneath its successor Winchester Cathedral. All right. Right here. And 901, one second, let me backtrack. So it said under King Cinwalls of Wessex. Let's see who he is. In 609, 642. Now we know Bede tells the story of the English history. So it says, Bede states that Cinwald was the son of King Singulus, baptized by Bishop of Berninius. He was also the great-grandson of Cedric. The Anglo-Saxon chronicles often several ancestries for Singulus, and the relationship of Singulus and Cinwalls to later kings is uncertain. All right, because they said that the Anglo-Saxon king goes by the Hinkson, what was it, Hinkson Soka or something, whatever the name is, had noted that the name Cinwalls is a British father in Anglo-Saxon etymology. Also, Singulus is said to have been converted to Christianity. Bede writes that Cinwalls refused to embrace the mysteries, of the faith and of the heavenly kingdom. And not longer after, also, he lost the dominion of his earthly kingdom, for he put away the sister of Pinda, king of Mercia, who he married, and took another wife, whereupon a war ensuing, he was himself expelled from the kingdom. So this goes back to 6th century. And we know this is also the time of the version of the so-called Christianity on the Anglo-Saxons, all right? Which is the reason why you came into from the old New Minister of Winchester to the New Minister of Winchester as converted by the Anglo-Saxon kings from the House of Wessex, which was started by Alfred the Great, all right? So that brings us to New Minister of Charter. Because you had old New Minister of Winchester to the New Minister of Winchester, which brought forth the New Minister of Charter. Which is once again an illuminated manuscript. All right. As Brother Shahar said in my last video, when he was arguing with the other brothers in regards to concerning the birthright and the origin of the Hebrew Israelites, contrast to those who were those of the Egyptians. All right, New Minister's Charter. An Anglo-Saxon illuminated manuscript that was likely composed by Æthelwold Bishop Æthelwold, and presented to the new ministers in Winchester by King Edgar in 966 to commemorate the Benedictine Reform. Who was Æthelwold? Let's find out who he was first. All right. Æthelwold of Worcester or Winchester. Prince up. Æthelwold of Winchester, also Æthelwold or Æthelwold, was a bishop of Winchester from 963 to 984 and one of the leaders of the 10th century monastery reform movement of Anglo-Saxon. Not to mention King Edgar the Peaceful, Æthelstan and Alfred the Great, all going all the way back to Æthelwold. Monastic life had declined to a low ebb flow in England in the 9th century, partially because of the ravages caused by Viking attacks, and partly because of the preference of circular clergy, who were cheaper and were thought to serve the spiritual needs of the laity better. King Alfred the Great onward took an interest in the Benedictine move, but it was only in the middle of the 10th century that the kings became ready to commit substantial funds to its support. Æthelwold became the leading propagandist for the monastic reform, although he made enemies by his ruthless methods and he was more extreme in his opposition to secular clergy than his fellow reformers. St. Dunstan and Oswald Worcester St. Dunstan and Oswald of Worcester. He nevertheless recognized as a key figure in the Reform movement, who also made a major contribution to the revival of learning and the arts. He was an important political figure backing Ethelred the Unready against Edward the Martyr and playing a major advisory role during Ethelred's minority. All right, let's go back to the charter. Style. Although the use of gold lettering was uncommon in England, every page of the new minister charter is written in gold, making it one of a kind. The insular style letter is present in the charter, which is recently made mainly in round style, one Anglo-Caroline script. So they talk about Anglo and Carolingian connection. We know the Anglo-Carolingian goes back to the Plantagenet and Capitan War, and we know the Plantagenet descended down from Anjou, i.e. Folk V, ruler of Jerusalem, and the Caroline did descended down from the Merovingians under Clovis I, who never claimed to be descendants of gods like the Clovis or the Clovis culture, which says all in God, which make reference to territory over here, which we know the territories that were under the Frankish alliances goes back to Louis the 14th to Louis the 15th, which were under the alliances made by St. Francis of the House of Angoulême and House of Valius, which ascended down from the Capet, House of Capet, which goes back to the Capitan dynasty, dealing with the Plantagenet and Capitan rivalry. All right, look that up at your own time. I don't have time to go through it. It says so. The Anglo-Caroline script with large capital letters marking the beginning of different sections of text. Aside from this stylized letter, the majority of the written pages have no other type of illumination. All right. The only true exceptions are from near to the beginning of the character. One page presents the name of King Edgar with blue watch and gold borders. The king name presents as Edgar Rex and written in square capitals with the remainder of the page written in unicals. The facing page contains a large chivo, also referred to as Chrismon, decorated in green gold, also framed in gold. The text of the page is written entirely of square capitals. Presenting these pages is an elaborate front piece, the only fully illuminated page of the charter. Also noteworthy, all the crosses are done in these witness lists, some filled with gold and others merely outlined in brown or red. The significance of the different style of crosses is specifically to correlate somehow to the importance of each witness, but is not entirely known. Another stylistic feature that was unusual for its time is the presence of the 10 remitting sentences of the pro se in chapter 11. Let's go back to it. As you can see, front piece of Newminster Charter, Edgar is flanked by the Virgin Mary and St. Peter, and he's offered the charter of Christ, who sits enthroned above, surrounded by 4 angels. As you can see, Edgar, St. Peter, Virgin Mary, flanked by the angels, and his King Jesus Christ, or the image of Christ, or the personification of Christ, through the incorporation, through that charter, which is a certificate of corporation, which is what we did. All right. In lieu of the quiet possession, by way of acquiring the title, by way of the quiet possession use that was done by way of easements. All right. Prescription of easement. We'll talk about that another time. All right. Let's see. Where I want to go. All right. That brings me here. What you see here is the library on All Souls College. All right. The library of All Souls College is a part of what we call Oxford University. All right. Once again, it's a part of Oxford University. Oxford University was chartered by Henry II in the 12th century. All right. Henry II, King of England, son of Godfrey the Fifth, Caliban Jew, son of Falk, of Jerusalem, um, chartered Oxford University. Here's a picture of King Edgar the Peaceful. All right. Let me show you him now. King Edgar, who won the reincarnation now. If you all can see that, that's King Edgar the Peaceful. All right, look just like me. Let me find a picture for you to see. All right, let me do it this way. That's my little cartoon character my Archbishop made for me. All right, I hope y'all like that. We're gonna create a cartoon for the children. You know what I'm saying? Let them know the history of their king. All right, it's gonna be nice. Best believe that. It's gonna be really nice. All right, let me go keep going. There you go. As you can see, you see the resemblance of him, King Edgar, Jefferson, because Jefferson means peaceful territory. Godfrey, all right? And that's me, reincarnated in the same year, 1,000 years from that, just the entity. He died in 975. I was born in 1970. 5-year difference, all right? Only a 5-year difference, give or take, all right? And this is him. Let me just look him up right now. Let's see. I don't want to do that. 1 second. Let me just pull them up. All right. None of these cartoons, but stained glass window. Stained glass. This is an All Souls College on stained glass window on a library. It's called the Royal Window. This image right there is when the Scottish kings, Kenneth MacAlpine, or Kenneth was it? Kenneth MacAlpine, not Kenneth MacAlpine. Kenneth of Scotland, Kenneth II of Scotland, ruled with other kings in honor of the overlordship of King Edgar the Peaceful. So they knew who this king was. All right. October 1st, 959. We know October is the month for All Souls College. We know that All Saints Day or Halloween is for All Saints. All right. There you see him right there. Edgar, what it says, Shakespeare stager, King Edgar, reigning from October 1st, 959. Item, artifacts, play, King Lear, play setting. So I didn't even know King Lear had something to do with King Edgar the Peaceful. Let's just click that right quick. Reginald Foles has argued King Lear has probably replaced Hamlet as Shakespeare's most admired play because of the recognition of the broad-grass range of the human relationship. Nevertheless, the play has usually been mutilated in performance. Shakespeare's downbeaten ending of the plot was death of Lear and Cordelia. In contrast to his source, has oppressed so many that it was often played with Nahum Tate happy ending. With Edgar marrying Cordelia and Lear restored, the fools eliminated the Errante as a confidant for Cordelia. This version was acted by Thomas Betterson, Edmund, and Edmund King, preferred by Samuel Johnson. The play was even suppressed for a time when George III was suffered mental impairment. That's irrelevant. All right, but it's apparently associated with the King Lear. All right, so as you can see, this image of King Edgar the Peaceful, it's in All Souls College. All right, All Souls College is also the same image that you see here. All right, which is here. There go Edward the Confessor. There go Oswald. All right, all these were the saints. That's Edward the King Edgar Peaceful again. This is my book I got coming out. All right, Agnatic Primogeniture. And while we're on that topic, let's go there. All right. We know that the Merovingians practiced Salic law. All right, Salian law. And the Merovingians never claimed to be descendant of gods. All right, even though they practiced primogeniture, they didn't practice according to the primogeniture of those descended down from God. All right, like the Anglo-Saxon descendants, they had a genealogy going back to God. We know Clovis I, when you go back to the culture, the founder of the Clovis culture, all right, the Merovingian culture, under Clovis I, who was a Merovingian, his family crest clearly says all is in God. We know the Angles or the English or the Anglos had to deal with the messages of God. So who are you going to see the message from? The Anglo or the English, which are the Anglo-Saxon, or those who originated from those going back to Constantinople through that theology created through the Nicene Council, all right, under the Nicene Creed, which is nothing more than Arianism, all right? Let's move forward. Oh yeah, let's go here. We're talking about Salian. They was under Salian law, right? So let's deal with this. Where is it at? Here we go. Agnatic succession. You hear us talk about it all the time. The purpose for males which exists in most systems of hereditary succession came mostly from the perceived nature of the role of the monarch. Did y'all hear that? From the role of the monarch. Additionally, in some monarchies, the monarch held a certain mystical almost priestly position. The role, depending on the tradition in question, was often denied to females. In the French monarchy, one of the official explanations for the Salic law was that the monarchy was obliged to use certain sacred instruments which females were forbidden even to touch. We know Salic law originated from the Merovingians, who were the Frankish, who were born with the Anglo-Saxons or the Anglo, who are descended from God. All right, we know there's a difference between the Clovis I of the Merovingians and Alfred the Great, who were Anglo-Saxon. All right, there's a totally different based off the primogeniture birthright that were descended down intel. All right, going back to, as they said, they recognized the ascetic law, but not based off genealogy going back to godly. All right, the children of God. All right, we know Anglo, it's a French word. It came from Normandy, which brings you to the Angevin Empire. All right, which were warring with the Frankish Empire. The Angevin Empire, County of Anjou, followed the inheritance by agnatic seniority. You hear that? When Henry II of England married Eleanor Aquitaine, a Frankish queen. Let's find out. This year. Eleanor of Aquitaine. All right. Everybody see that? Eleanor of Aquitaine. She was married to who? Who was her spouse? Everybody needs to see this. Louis VII of France, and then she divorced. After that, it was Henry II of England. All right. Her house is from the Bramnulfus. So let's see who Louis the Seventh is. Louis VII was king of the Franks. Louis VII was king of the Franks. All right. So these Franks are these Vikings, these Northmen, were descended down from the Carolingians, the Merovingians, who were never believed in God like the Anglo-Saxons, which apparently has to be over here. Why? Because I'm over here. All right. Louis VII, he was the son of the successor of King Louis VI, the epoch of the young, the marriage between Eleanor of Aquitaine, one of the wealthiest, most powerful women in Western Europe. The marriage typically extended to the Capitan. Anybody know who the Capitan dynasty is? Let's find out, since we're here. Hey, mama. All right. Capitan dynasty. Capitan dynasty, also known as the House of France, Frankish, I might add. All right, not coming from those who were English, because Anglo is from Normandy. All right, so English and Normandy is actually one and the same as a result of the marriage between Godfrey, the fifth Count of Anjou, son of Fulk, ruler of Jerusalem, and Empress Matilda, son of Margaret of Scotland, and Malcolm III. This says the House of France is a dynasty of European origin, a branch of the Robertines, which William the Conqueror is descended out from. It is among the largest and the oldest royal houses of Europe in the world, and consists of the House of Quebec. All right, the House of Quebec descended from what we call the Capitan dynasty. All right, let's go to the Capital Plantagenet War. Let's see if we can find that real quick. 1295. The Treaty of Paris of 1295. All those who know about that, I congratulate you for studying. This is stuff you got to know. We just pull that up real quick. Come on. Rivalry. Rival. Okay. These are undisputable facts, everyone. Undisputable facts. All right, I'll let everybody pull that up. Give you a second. Go ahead and run to the bathroom. I'll be with you in a second. Okay, I'm back. 1 second. I'm back. Capitan Plantagenet robbery. Are we already associated with the Clovis I with the Merovingian dynasty? Merovingian dynasty never came to be descendants of God like the Anglo-Saxons, right? We know that the Merovingian dynasty were those who descended down from Clovis I, and Clovis I is associated with the Clovis culture in North America, which according to the video we watched, they said they were Vikings. So they were Vikings, and that means they were associated with the Northmen, and the Northmen or the Vikings associated with the Scottish Norman. And the Scottish Norman were those who were associated with the Scottish kings. And, the Scottish kings had alliances with the Frankish kings, and the Frankish kings had alliance with North America, known as the Treaty of Alliance. And this present day going all the way back to that time immemorial. So I'm about to come to a close, and I'm gonna wrap this up with the bringing the connection and bringing it home. It says here, the Capitan Plantagenet robbery was a series of conflict disputes that covered a period of 100 years, during which the House compared rulers of the Kingdom of France, i.e. the Frankish Empire, under the Frankish alliances, under those barbarian Northmen who invaded England, strong with William the Conqueror, which include Æthelstan II, the father of Godfrey of Bouillon, the father of Baldwin I, the father of Baldwin II, who were ruling the kingdom of Jerusalem, who were started by the Order of the Holy Sepulchre, going back to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, going back to Constantine, which was associated with Clovis I, his wife Clodote, whatever her name is, which is also associated with Ethelbert's wife Bertha, who was also a Merovingian, who was never claimed to be descendant of God. When the Anglo-Saxon kings of Kent, known as Ethelbert, claimed that the influence of the Roman Catholic upon the Anglo-Saxon descendants actually never happened, all right? Because we were constantly repelling the Vikings or the Norsemen from invasions. Some who were allowed to come there were allowed to, such as Harold Canute, Harold Godwinson, etc., because they helped fight off those invading Vikings. All right. So it says that rulers of the House Kingdom of France fought the House of Plantagenet, also known as the House of Anjou. Did y'all hear that? The House of Anjou, very important. Rulers of the Kingdom of England over the Plantagenet held Angevin Empire, which is its peak can cover around half of the territory within France. Some historians refer to the series of events as the First 100-Year War, which resulted in what we call the War of the Roses. All right? We must understand that. All right? Now, who was the founder of the Plantagenet and the Crown? Who was the founder of it? Anybody take a guess? I'm pretty sure you can. Let's find out. Henry received the Duchy of Normandy from his father, Godfrey V, Count of Anjou. When he died in 1151, he became Count of Anjou and Maine. You go back to the Treaty of Westminster, 1153, when William the Conqueror invaded England. His son, Henry I, was supposed to be married to Fulk V's daughter, Margaret of Anjou. William Adden died in the White Ship, which caused the anarchy, which was a breach in the treaty. All right. So as a result of that, Fulk V decided to have Matilda Empress, the daughter of Margaret of Scotland or Margaret of Wessex, who was married to Malcolm III's daughter, married hold on, give me a second. Let me get it right. Since Henry I's daughter was supposed to marry Fulk V's daughter, Margaret of Anjou, to show an alliance with the Kingdom of England, because even though William the Conqueror invaded England, he still followed English laws. All right. He still followed traditions that were set up and a law that was established by Edward the Confessor. All right. Which goes back to the Stone of Scones or Edward the Confessor's chair. All right. Which is still being practiced today by the European monarch. Henry II developed or inherit the demise of the crown as a result of Stephen dying, which was the agreement of the Treaty of Westminster 1153. So as we see here, Henry II received the Duchy of Normandy in New Jersey, was called Jersey as well as the Duchy of Normandy, which was under the Treaty of Westminster going back to 1674, going to Charles II as the restoration of the Stuart monarch. All right, going back to the English what you call the English Civil War between the Parliament of England, Ireland, and Scotland. So the English Civil War, which was the War of Three Kingdoms of England, Ireland, and Scotland, ended with the restoration of Charles II, which was the Scottish king of Kingdom of Alba. He was never an English king. All right, you didn't have an English king till you got me. All right. So Henry II received the Duchy of Normandy from his father, Godfrey V, Count of Anjou. When he died in 1151, became Count of Anjou. All right. And we know Count of Anjou ended with the Edward III's descendants, Henry IV, Henry V, Henry VI, going on to Henry VII, Henry VIII, which I'm gonna close out on that. All right. So who was Godfrey V, Count of Anjou father? Let's find out. Godfrey V, Count of Anjou. Make sure y'all see that. Called the Handsome the Fair. Plantagenet was the Count of Anjou to reign in Maine by inheritance from 1129, and also Duke of Normandy by his marriage to claim and conquest of 1144. Godfrey married Empress Matilda. Empress Matilda's mother was Margaret of Wessex and Malcolm III. Let's just prove it to you, because I don't want y'all to think I just be making stuff up. Matilda, Lady of the English. House of Normandy. We know Anglo is from Normandy. Father, Henry I. His mother, Matilda of Scotland, or Matilda of Scotland. All right. Matilda of Scotland. Y'all see it right there. Let's see who Matilda of Scotland is real quick. All right. She's her mother is Margaret of Wessex, right? Her father is Malcolm III of Scotland, as I just said. All right, Malcolm Scotland was a Scottish king who aligned himself by marriage with a Wessex queen. All right, Margaret of Wessex was the daughter of Edward the Exile. All right, for the second time, I'm not going to go back through that. I'm going to come on to my closing. All right. So Empress Matilda was married to Godfrey V, Calaban Jew, and his father was who? Pope V, Kingdom of Jerusalem. All right, Kingdom of Jerusalem. Pope V was known as Pope the Younger, was Calaban Jew before he passed to his son Godfrey V, Calaban Jew, and from 1109 to 1129, in the King of Jerusalem with his wife Melisande to his death during the reign of Kingdom of Jerusalem reached his largest territorial extent. Did everybody hear that? All right. Everybody heard that. I'm going to read this next paragraph and then we'll move forward. Fulk was originally an opponent of King Henry I of England. You hear that? Because of that treaty made with William of Atherland, who died in the white ship. All right? They want to say it. Fulk was originally an opponent of King Henry I of England and supporters of Louis VII of France. But in 1118 and 1119, he allied with Henry when he arranged for his daughter Matilda of Anjou to marry his son William Atherland. Fulk went on a pilgrimage to Jerusalem in 1119 or 1120 and became attached to the Knights of Templars. He returned late in 1121, after which he began to subsidize the Templars, maintaining 2 nights in the Holy Land for a year. Much later, Henry IV arranged for his own daughter, Matilda, to marry Fulk's son, Godfrey V, Calaban Jew, which she did in 1127 and 1128. Everybody see that? Prior to Fulk V coming on the scene as King of Jerusalem, you had Baldwin II, Baldwin I, who was the son of Eustace II, who was the son of Godfrey of Bouillon. Baldwin I was the son of Godfrey of Bouillon, which was the son of Eustace II, who was from the House of Flanders, who went at war with England when William the Conqueror invaded England. He was invited to England by Edward the Confessor, and as a result of his problem with the Danish, he was exiled. All right, and then he came back with Flemish troops to invade England in 1066. All right, these are straight facts. All right, so we know that Fulk V was the ruler of Jerusalem when he gave Anjou to Godfrey V, Calaban Jew, and we know Anjou represents England because we know Anglo is a name originated from Normandy. All right, so let's come to my closing. Bro, did you bring that? Thank you, Queen. House of Flanders. William the Conqueror was from the House of Flanders. All right. Eustace II was from the House of Flanders. His son Godfrey of Bouillon was from the House of Flanders. All right. All those descended from the Carolingians, who descended from the Merovingians, who claimed to never descend from God. All right. The House of Flanders, also called Baldwin, was a medieval ruling family of Frankish origin, so they automatically mean they're Vikings, that was founded by Baldwin of Iron Arms, son-in-law of Charles the Bald. The House of Flanders was the first dynasty to transform the county functions of the Carolingian Empire into a heraldry fiefdom of the County of Flanders. You see that? All right, so that's how they keep stealing our state, by invading, by amalgamating, etc. All right, let me come here. Everybody see the movie Kingdom of Heaven, right? I'm pretty sure you did. The Kingdom of Heaven. Right there. Everybody watch that movie. Why do I say watch this movie? Because as I said, Fulk V, Kingdom of Jerusalem, came to its very height. All right. All the castles that you see in England at the time of the Crusades were built by Godfrey V, Calaban Jew's father. All right. He built Evelyn castles. He built the castle of Kerak. He built all that. All that was conquered by Saladin. All right. All that was conquered by Saladin. Let's get a brief on that before I close out. In medieval France, Balian, a blacksmith, and Balian was a blacksmith who worked with iron or tools. I used to work with iron and tools when I used to work in my job at Robert Johnson, working with utensils that they use for surgery or procedures in what we call an autoclave. An autoclave is the descendant of those methods that they used back in the medieval days, working with iron. Okay, yes, and that's when at that time, that's when I had my seizure. All right, and we know that seizures or epilepsies are associated with digital uploading, going back to us being what we call what my man called Brother Harshaw said, we are digitally what do you say we are a hard drive to the creator through our mental understanding of who we are, which is stored in our DNA, i.e. our biological memory of ourselves through what we call cell lineage. All right. They said in medieval France, a blacksmith who was hunted by his wife reaching suicide after the death of their unborn child meets a group of crusaders who visits the village. Their leader introduces himself as Balian Father Baron Godfrey of Eboli. All right. It's the word Godfrey. And asked him to return with him to the Holy Land. But Balian declined. Later that night, Balian kills his half-brother, the town priest, after discovering that orders Balian's wife's body beheaded before burial. The next day, Balian joins his father group, hoping to gain salvation for himself and his wife in Jerusalem. They are soon confronted by soldiers sent to arrest Balian, during which many are killed and arrow strikes Godfrey. Now we know in the movie The Crusades and the Knights Templars in the movie Kingdom of Heaven that Jerusalem was a place that all religions can come to. All right, and it was under the authority of Baldwin IV. Baldwin IV was the son of Almerac, the son of Fulk V. All right, once again, Baldwin IV, who was cursed with leper, was the son of Amarac, the son of Fulk V. And Amarac's Baldwin IV's sister was called Sibylla, the son of Fulk. That's qualified. That soon confronted by soldiers sent to arrest Balian, during the many are killed. And our arrow strike Godfrey, reaching Messenia. They have a contentious encounter with Guy Lucasstein, one of the Knights of Templar, a prospective future king of Jerusalem, who intends to break the fragile alliance between the Crusader state and the Sultan of Saladin, with help from the brutal anti-Muslim Templars Knights. A night before the departure, Godfrey knights to Balian and order him to protect the helpless before succumbing to his arrows. All right, coming to my closing. Balian sailed for the Holy Land. 1 second. I'll call you back. I'm doing a meeting. Balian sails to the Holy Land, but his ships runs aground in a storm. I.e., that's going back to the anarchy, y'all. That's going back to the anarchy. Balian sails for the Holy Land, Jerusalem, but his ships runs aground in a storm, leaving him the lone survivor. As he makes his way to Jerusalem on foot, Balian fights a Muslim cavalier over a horse and found. Balian slays the cavalier, but spares his servant, who guides him to Jerusalem. This is the servant Saladin. Arriving in the city, Balian frees the servant, who tells him his mercy will earn him his Saracens' respect. Balian quickly becomes acquainted with the Jerusalem political arena. The leper King Baldwin IV. King Baldwin IV is the son of Amarac. Let's just prove that. Baldwin IV, Father Amarac in Jerusalem. You hear Mother Agnes of Courtenay, Father Amarac of Jerusalem. All right, let's go back. Matter of fact, let's go back here. His father was who? Amarac of Jerusalem. All right. Where was I at? Baldwin IV. Everybody see that? His father was Amarac of Jerusalem. Amarac's father was who? Pope V. Everybody see that? Pope V. And Pope V was also the father of Godfrey, the fifth Canterbury Jew, who was ruling in France and England at the time. All this was under the jurisdiction of what we call Jerusalem, contrast to the false Jerusalem that they want you to believe as created by the Frankish Empire as a result of their jealousy against us as being descendants of the Anglo-Saxon purpose, which goes back to the time immemorial. Why? Because we all have what we call Ether. The Ethiopians were called the Etherians, all right? The land of the black ones, all right? Which was a part of when it was called the Pangea. You have to look up the TNO map, but I can't go through that right now. Which goes back to the sons dealing with Shem, Ham, and Japheth. That crucifix globus that you see the kings carrying right here, that's called the crucifix globus, all right? Salvation of the world, which is based off north, south, east, and west, all right? The story about the origin of the kings, all right? So in closing, let me see. All right, it says who? We know that Amarac was the father of Baldwin IV, the last ruler of Jerusalem before Saladin took over, all right? And we know Amarac was the son of Folk, ruler of Jerusalem. We know the queen of Jerusalem when Saladin took over was Sibylla of Jerusalem. Let's hit Sibylla. Shh. Don't forget what you see in the movies, how they're being portrayed, because that's not what that's not them. Sibylla of Jerusalem, queen consort, was father was who? Amarac of Jerusalem. For her house was the house of Anjou. All right, and the house of Anjou goes back to the house of Chadadun. All right, founder Godfrey I, Viscount of Chadadun. All right, that's that surname. They were the lords of the earth. Frey means Lord, Geo means earth, or is God free? Frey, Lord God. All right, that's why they always refer to the kings as lords. So in closing, I close with this. This is from the Vitimus, which deals with the stained glass. All right, Vitimus means I see. All right, I'm gonna go down. We know that the All Souls College, which has an illustrious history and an ancient history, was created by Henry Chickles as All Souls College, which is an extension of Oxford University. All right, which was chartered by Henry II. I want to read this part right here in closing. As you can see, you see St. Andrew. St. Andrew was a Scottish saint. And we know when we get to St. Andrew, as a Scottish saint, helped assisted the Scottish against Æthelstan when he was fighting for the Angles. And we know Angles are the English. We know English are the messengers of God. So that's just a distortion. But of course, of the ignorance of those who established the Library of College of All Souls at that time in the 13th century were still illiterate about the history concerning the true de jure kings and queens of Anglo-Saxon. And with that, I qualify that, which is the result of what we call the 100-Year War or the wars concerning Lancasters, which is stipulated right here. It says here, you see Edward the Confessor? He's right here. King Edward the Confessor, All Souls College, just like you see King Edgar the Peaceful. It says here, the Northwest contains the four doctors of the church, St. Ambrose, Augustine the Hippo, Jerome, and Pope Gregory I. All right? This going back to Constantinople and the doctors of the church, going all the way back to St. Peter's, which the English Reformation and which the English, the new minister of Winchester was built off. St. Peter, which Jesus said he'll build his church off of. The Roman Catholic Church claimed to be the Church of Christ because they bear the keys of St. Peter, which is we know is false because it's not in their charter. The half window above north door houses three kings and three archbishops. Richard Marx has suggested that the depiction of kings in the college glass may have been political. The Lancastrian could be said to have an vulnerable claim to the English crown. their supporters may have invested in imaginary, which showed that Henry IV, Henry V, and Henry VI were legitimate successors to past English monarchs. All right, we know Henry IV was the son of Edward, was the son of John Gaunt, which is illegitimate. But as a result of the people who posted this don't know English history, this is what you're taught to believe. So as a result of that, it closes out and says, the royal scheme of all souls originally included Constantine II, Scottish, who were warned with Æthelstan at the Battle of what was called Brunanburh, to repel those Vikings, as well as the teachings that they were teaching under those canon clergy, which were removed and replaced by monks through the English Benedictine Reform by way of Ethelbert, who validated that prior to the Augustine Gregorian mission, that Rome had nothing to do with Great Britain, as well as Edward the Confessor, which was the great grandson of Alfred the Great, Edward II, John Gaunt, described as King of Spain, Henry IV, Henry V, Henry VI. Professor Marx reads like the scheme as the justification of the Lancastrian claim to the throne from Edward via John Gaunt. So it was due John Gaunt that they claimed the throne that belonged to the Angevin Plantagenet crown. Archbishop Chickles was largely responsible for the iconographical program of the All Souls Glass. Chickles was a firm supporter of the House of Lancaster. You hear that? And the House of Lancaster where Henry VIII descended down from, who put everything in a trust as when he broke away from the Roman Catholic Church as a result of the Intel estate, which was left for the crown, which I'm the corporation sold of. And with that, we here at the Third Temple English Church, 1 second, let me show my face. We're here at the English Third Temple Church. We love you all. And like I said, just don't take this information and just watch it, but put it to some good use. You know what I'm saying? Because this is your birthright. So if all those who are watching from the platforms that I talked about today, it's not to discourage you, it's not to scold you, but it's to make you follow the straight and narrow path, all right, as required in Jeremiah 6:16. With that,